Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on every classic world of Warcraft dungeon. Ragefire Chasm. Ragefire Chasm is a dungeon located directly beneath Orgrimmar, the capital city of the Horde, which means the Burning Blade cult has been conducting satanic rituals underneath the homes of the people who would most want them arrested. Truly inspired placement. 4 bosses, a single looping corridor, a recommended level range of 13 to 18. The entire instance takes roughly 20 minutes, which is being generous. Taragaman, the Hungerer, Jurgosh, the Invoker, Bazilon, and Ogleflint are your opponents here, and none of them are particularly interested in being remembered. Alliance players cannot access this dungeon without dying their way into Orgrimmar. They should consider themselves fortunate. If you wipe here, I genuinely don't know what to tell you. Next up is Wailing Caverns. A druid Nerlex entered these caves with the intention of healing the barons through a vision he received in the Emerald Dream. The Emerald Dream then trapped him inside a nightmare, corrupted the entire cave system, and mutated his fellow druids of the Fang into snake men. A cautionary tale about ambition, or possibly about caves. The dungeon is a winding, branching, completely unmarked labyrinth that has disoriented every group that has ever entered it at level 18. Mutanus the Devourer, the final boss, only appears after you've killed all 4 Fang cultist leaders scattered across the tunnel network. You will miss at least one. You will spend 40 minutes looking for it. The Deviate Delight food that drops here turns you into a pirate or a ninja. This is a real mechanic that was approved by developers. Moving on to the Dead Mines, Edwin Van Cleef personally oversaw the reconstruction of Stormwind after the Second War. The nobles thanked him by refusing to pay him or any of his workers. He responded by founding a criminal brotherhood, seizing a mine in Westfall, and constructing a fully operational pirate fleet inside a cave. Proportionate. You fight through the mine, descend into the shipyard, and then a pirate ship reveals itself inside a mountain. It is one of the single best environmental moments in the history of the game, and Alliance players who skip this dungeon for the stockade are making a decision I cannot support. Mr. Smite is a goblin boss who stops your life or death combat encounter to open a chest and equip new weapons. Mid-fight, nobody warns you about this. Your tank dies confused every single time. Van Cleef, for what it's worth, was right. Next up is Shadowfang Keep. Archmage Aragal was commissioned to help fight the Scourge. His solution was to summon the Worgen, monstrous wolfmen from the Emerald Dream, and unleash them on the undead. The Worgen then killed everyone in the keep, ignored Aragal entirely, and continued killing things. The Scourge problem was technically resolved. Every other problem was significantly worsened. Aragal now rules the keep in service to the Lich King, surrounded by ghosts of the original inhabitants, undead knights, and Vorgen that do not take instructions from him. The dungeon is dark corridors, ghost children, and gothic architecture that commits fully to the haunted mansion aesthetic at a level bracket where most dungeons look like a hole in the ground. It is genuinely one of the best looking dungeons at this tier. It is also home to pull density that has ended more low level groups than the Scourge ever managed. Next up is Black Fathom Deeps. Black Fathom Deeps is an ancient night elf temple dedicated to a loon that sank into the ocean and is now home to Naga, satyrs, and a cult worshipping the old gods. This is a significant downgrade in tenants by any measure. The dungeon requires you to swim through submerged sections to access portions of the layout, which is either atmospheric game design or a credible threat against your patience, depending on your disposition. The underwater areas are genuinely eerie and visually distinctive. Nobody notices because they are too busy drowning and missing half the bosses. Akumai, the final boss, is a massive tentacled old god creature at the end of a level 30 dungeon. He looks like he belongs in a raid. The Twilight Hammer cultists maintaining his summoning ritual suggests that the old god problem in Azeroth started considerably earlier than most players realize. 7 bosses. Most groups find 4. Next up is the Stockade. The Stockade is a prison inside Stormwind where the prisoners rioted, and you go in and kill the prisoners. That is the dungeon. There is no ship reveal. There is no haunted architecture. There is a hallway, and then another hallway, and then a few more hallways containing criminals who are no longer behind bars. The layout is completely flat and linear. Navigation is not a skill this dungeon tests. The Defias Brotherhood is allegedly involved in organizing the riot, which is the most interesting thing about the stockade, and is also entirely resolved off screen. Alliance players have the Dead Mines, which is a masterpiece, and the Stockade, which is a correctional facility. Horde players cannot access this dungeon without dying their way into Stormwind. They are not missing anything. 6 bosses, 15 minutes, functionally a hallway with ambition. Next up is Noma Reagan. Sicko Thermoplug convinced High Tinker Mecha Torque that releasing irradiation gas was the only way to stop a Trog invasion of their city. The gas killed approximately 80% of the gnome population. Thermoplug had calculated this outcome in advance and considered it acceptable. Mechatorsha had not. Thermoplug now rules the irradiated ruins as Mechgineer Thermoplug, surrounded by leper gnomes who are the surviving citizens he poisoned, and an army of malfunctioning mechanical constructs. The dwarves gave the displaced gnomes a corner of Ironforge to live in. The gnomes describe this as an alliance. The dwarves describe it as charity. The dungeon is enormous, multi-tiered, and structured in a way that suggests the architect was actively hostile to visitors. The elevator alone has claimed groups that never recovered. Thermoplug's fight involves an alarm button on the wall that he periodically activates, summoning additional enemies. Players are supposed to stop him from pressing it. Players do not stop him from pressing it. Leper gnomes are the saddest enemy type in the game. You are killing plague victims. Next up is Razorfin Krell. Agamagan was an ancient boar god who died during the War of the Ancients. Where his body fell, an enormous thorn wall grew across the southern barrens. The Quillboar, who believed themselves born from his sacrifice, built their civilization inside it. You are therefore running a dungeon set inside the corpse of a deity, which is information most players process 0 times during their playthrough. The Quillboar are not mindless enemies. They are a deeply religious faction defending what they genuinely consider sacred ground. Charlga Razorflank, the final boss, is a witch doctor who has begun making deals with the undead to protect her people, which is the kind of morally complicated decision-making classic WoW buries in a level 30 dungeon and never mentions again. It foreshadows Razorfin Downs directly. 5 bosses, straightforward layout, legitimately interesting lore that the game presents to you on a platter and that you will ignore completely while running past it at full sprint. Next up is Scarlet Monastery. The Scarlet Crusade are human zealots so committed to destroying the undead that they graduated to killing the living on suspicion alone. Their leadership is secretly Balnazar, a dreadlord who has been steering the organization toward increasingly deranged paranoia from the inside. The most fanatical anti-undead faction in the game is being run by a demon. This is not public knowledge within the lore. It is, however, extremely funny. 4 wings spanning levels 26 through 45. The graveyard and library are quick. The armory gives you Herod, whose whirlwind charge and subsequent death scream constitute the single greatest boss moment in classic WoW, and I will not be taking questions on this. The cathedral gives you Scarlet Commander Mograine and High Inquisitor Whitemane, who, upon dying, immediately resurrects Mograine via Scarlet Resurrection. You are supposed to kill them simultaneously. You did not kill them simultaneously. Mograine is back up, and your healer is dead. The tabard of the Scarlet Crusade drops from Herod at a drop rate low enough that owning one is a personality trait. The dungeon is beloved, mechanically varied, and atmospheric across all 4 wings. It is the best dungeon in this level bracket, and it is not particularly close. Next up is Razorfin Downs. Razorfin Krell established that the Quillboar built their civilization inside the corpse of a dead boar god. Razorfin Downs establishes that a lich named Amnenar the Coldbringer has since moved in and started raising their dead. The Quillboar cannot catch a break on any front. The dungeon is a spiritual sequel with a darker aesthetic, a distinctive spiral layout, and genuinely more interesting mechanics than its predecessor. Tutankash is a giant spider boss, named transparently after Tutankhamun, summoned by ringing a bell 3 times while waves of spiders attack your group. It is a legitimately well-constructed encounter for the level range. Mordresh Fireeye commands undead from atop a pile of bones. The whole thing has atmosphere. None of this matters because Scarlet Monastery exists at roughly the same level range and offers 4 wings of content, better loot, and Herod's death scream. Razorfin Downs is a good dungeon that arrived at the wrong time on the leveling timeline and has been paying for it ever since. Most players discover it exists approximately 2 levels after they needed it. Next up is Uldaman. Uldaman is a titan vault buried in the Badlands containing the discs of Norganen, which document the origin of the dwarven race. The short version is that the titans created the earthen as stone beings to help shape the world. The earthen later devolved into flesh, and the creatures now drinking in Ironforge and running dungeons with you are the biological descendants of living rock. This information is stored in a box in the desert. The dwarves found it. It was a significant afternoon for everyone involved. The dungeon reward exploration and has a genuine archaeological expedition identity that most classic dungeons don't attempt. Ironia, a massive stone golem, requires you to locate the shaft of Sol before her chamber will even open. Archaidas, the true final boss, awakens dormant stone watchers throughout his chamber as he loses health, flooding the room with ads that your group is almost certainly not prepared for. He has been guarding those discs for thousands of years. You are taking them for a quest reward and a chance at the stone shatter. He deserved better. Next up is Zul'Farrak. The Sand Fury Trolls are an isolated tribe that never joined the Dark Spear or the Zondalari. They settled in Tanaris, built a city in the desert, and began making sacrifices to Hakkar the Soul Flayer through his avatar Gahzrila, a massive hydra accessible only by using the mallet of Zul'Farrak. The mallet is crafted from a drop in the hinterlands, a completely different zone. Roughly half the groups who enter this dungeon arrive without it and confidently skip the best boss in the instance. Extraordinary decision making. The Pyramid Staircase event is one of the most memorable set pieces in classic WoW. You rescue imprisoned soldiers from the top of a wide pyramid staircase, and then survive escalating waves of troll attackers while the rescued soldiers fight alongside you. At the end, Sergeant Bly and his crew, the Alliance NPCs you just bled for, turn hostile and attack you immediately, without hesitation, without a word of explanation, just violence. The dungeon is partially open air, which gives it a sense of physical scale most instances don't have. It feels like a real place that exists for reasons beyond housing bosses for you to kill. This is rarer than it should be. Next up is Moradin. Moradin is a sacred centaur holy site built around the tomb of Zader, son of Cenarius, who coupled with Princess Theradris against his father's wishes, produced the entire centaur race as a consequence, and was then imprisoned by Theradras inside the very canyon they had desecrated together. The centaur venerate this location. Somewhere inside it, inexplicably, is a goblin named Tinkerer Gizlock with a giant robot. Nobody has ever provided a satisfying explanation for this. 3 interconnected wings span the full dungeon, the orange and purple outer sections feeding into the inner pristine waters where Princess Theradras waits at the end. A full clear is one of the longest dungeon experiences in classic WoW, featuring glowing crystal caverns, ancient ruins, and waterfalls that make it arguably the most visually striking instance in the game. It is genuinely beautiful. It is also approximately 4 hours long if you start from the beginning, which is why the Scepter of Celebris exists. The Scepter of Celebris is a quest reward that teleports your group directly to the pristine waters, skipping 80% of the dungeon. It was added as a core gameplay feature because the dungeon is so long that Blizzard felt obligated to provide an escape route. If your group insists on a full clear from the entrance at level 54, I respect the commitment. I do not respect the decision. Next up is Temple of Atal Hakkar. The green dragonflight sank this troll temple to the bottom of a lake in the Swamp of Sorrows, specifically to prevent the summoning of Hakkar the Soul Flayer. They then stationed Aranicus, a green dragon, inside the submerged ruins to guard it permanently. Aranicus has since been corrupted by the Emerald Nightmare. Nobody is guarding anything. The trolls are trying again. The dungeon layout is 2 concentric rings on multiple vertical levels, with no clear navigation, no obvious transitions between floors, and no indication that an upper level exists until you have already spent 25 minutes circling the lower ring, convinced you have completed it. You have not completed it. You have not found anything. The 6 optional mini bosses scattered across the lower ring exist specifically to make you feel like you are making progress while you are, in fact, going in circles. Several groups have quit here. Several more groups have asked their tanks to jump off the platform to check if there is something below. There is not something below. Jamalin, the prophet, leads the summoning effort from the upper level, which you will eventually locate. The avatar of Hakkar, which awaits you there, is technically not even the real Hakkar. It is a proxy. It will still kill your group if you are not prepared, which after 40 minutes of navigation, you probably are not. Shade of Aranicus is the final boss. He is a corrupted dragon who was supposed to prevent all of this. Next up is Blackrock Depths. Blackrock Depths is a fully functional subterranean dark iron dwarf city, not a dungeon with city aesthetics. An actual city with a prison, a gladiatorial arena, a vault, a cathedral, a throne room, and a bar. The bar has a bouncer. The bartender is technically a boss. He sells alcohol and drops a lock-picking trinket, and his name is Plugger Spazring, and this was approved at every level of development. Emperor Dalgren Tharasan holds Princess Moira Bronzebeard, daughter of the King of Ironforge, captive in the Imperial Chamber. She has developed the sympathy for her captor, is pregnant with his child, and will inform you of this before you kill him. This is a level 50 dungeon. The lore does not ease you into this. 16 named bosses across multiple routes, many entirely optional. A full clear runs between 3 and 6 hours. The Ring of Law Arena randomly selects your boss from a roster of 7 options, which means your experience is different every time and your preparation is wrong every time. The attunement chain for Molten Core, the first raid in classic WoW, runs directly through this dungeon. You are coming here regardless of your feelings on the matter. It is the greatest dungeon ever designed. Next up is Lower Blackrock Spire. Dalaran Blackhand leads the True Horde, a faction of orcs who survived the Alliance's defeat of the original Horde and refused to recognize Thrall as war chief. They consider themselves the authentic continuation of orcish power. They have allied with Nefarian and his Black Dragonflight to reclaim that power, which would be a more compelling strategy if Nefarian were not lying to them about every aspect of this arrangement. He has no intention of delivering on his promises. Dalrend has no idea. This is the True Horde's defining characteristic as a faction. Lower Blackrock Spire is a 5-man dungeon, sharing an entrance and architecture with Upper Blackrock Spire, a 10-man raid. 9 named bosses wind through its corridors, including Mother Smolderweb, a giant spider who deposits a spiderling into a random party member upon death, and Urok Doomhowl, a rare event boss requiring specific ogre standards to trigger that most groups never bother with. The Seal of Ascension, required to access Upper Blackrock Spire, is assembled from drops within this dungeon. This is the primary reason most players are here. Dalaran Blackhand commands an entire separatist orcish faction and functions in practice as a key dispenser. Next up is Upper Blackrock Spire. Nefarian keeps Rend Blackhand installed as war chief of the True Horde, primarily because having a puppet ruler is more convenient than personally managing an army of orcs. Rend commands from the Spire with genuine conviction. Nefarian finds this amusing. The arrangement ends when your 10-man group arrives and kills everyone, at which point Nefarian retreats to Blackwing Lair and the whole exercise is revealed to have been a distraction. Rend does not appear to have known this. Upper Blackrock Spire is a 10-man dungeon, which in practice means it generates more organizational drama than most raids. Loot competition over the Draconian Deflector, True Strike Shoulders, and Blackblade of Sharam has ended more guilds than content difficulty ever managed. Jed Runewatcher is a rare spawn that many groups never see. General Drakisath's head is required for the Blackwing Lair attunement, meaning every serious raiding player passes through here regardless of how the loot distribution goes. The beast is a massive creature in a cathedral chamber that you kill for its drops. Inside its stomach is a gnome named Finkel Einhorn, alive with a name, apparently fine. He drops Finkel's loot orang. The development team made a choice here, and it was the correct one. Next up is Dire Maul. Prince Tortheldrin murdered the entire population of Eldrathalas, the ancient highborn city of his own people, to sustain the magical barrier containing the demon Imolthar. The barrier required constant arcane energy. The population was the energy source. When the population ran out, Tortheldrin began drawing from the city's magical pylons instead, which is why the East Wing is overrun with wild growth, and the whole structure is actively deteriorating. He is still alive inside the West Wing, maintaining a barrier around a demon he could theoretically just kill, for reasons that reflect poorly on his decision-making across multiple centuries. 3 wings, distinct identities, and a mechanic in the North Wing that separates groups who know the dungeon from groups who are visiting for the first time. The Gordok Tribute Run requires keeping King Gordok alive until last, while navigating around or through the dungeon's non-essential bosses. Kill the right ones. Skip the right ones. King Gordok dies last and drops a tribute chest containing significantly enhanced loot for every surviving party member. Cho Rush the Observer is an optional boss near the end of the North Wing. He's not essential to the tribute. Killing him removes his healer role during the King Gordok fight, which sounds helpful and is actually unnecessary. And the player who insists on killing him anyway has just announced to the group that they did not read anything before logging in. The Dire Maul North Tribute Run was the most efficient pre-raid gearing path available for numerous classes at level 60. Players who knew this looked like geniuses. Players who didn't looked like they had never heard of Faralos. Next up is Scholomance. The Barov family once owned a school of magic on Kair Darrow Island in the Western Plaguelands. Darkmaster Gandeling converted it into a necromantic academy for the cult of the damned, staffed it with undead faculty including Instructor Militia and Dr. Theolen Krastinov, and installed 11 named bosses across a multi-room layout connected by portals that disorient every first-time visitor, without exception. Both Lord Alexei Barov and Lady Ilusia Barov are bosses inside the building their family built. The Cult of the Damned does not do severance packages. The dungeon contains so many bosses that groups debate which ones actually require killing on every single run. This debate is never fully resolved. Gandeling teleports individual party members into locked side rooms during his encounter, leaving the rest of your group short-handed while the teleported players kill a room of undead to escape. It is a genuinely clever mechanic. The players who get teleported invariably panic, stand in the room confused, and die to trash mobs while their group wipes outside. Kill the mobs. Leave the room. This is not complicated. Essential pre-raid content for priests, warlocks, and casters, and one of the most atmospherically committed dungeons in classic WoW. The School of Necromancy setting is played completely straight, and it works entirely. Next up is Strahome. Strahome is the city where Arthas Menethil slaughtered the civilian population before the Scourge Plague could turn them. It is one of the most consequential moments in Warcraft lore, and it produced a dungeon that 2 decades of players have run hundreds of times each, almost entirely because of a horse. 2 fully separate sides with distinct identities. The living side runs through Scarlet Crusade territory, ending with Balnazar, the Dreadlord, secretly commanding the crusade. If you have been paying attention since Shadowfang Keep, through Scarlet Monastery and into Scholomance, this completes a lore thread that classic WoW embedded across an entire leveling experience and never once announced. The undead side runs through Scourge territory to Baron Rivendare, who drops Death Charger's Reigns at approximately a 0.2% drop rate. Death Charger's Reigns is a skeletal mount. It is one of the rarest drops in the game. The Baron run became one of classic WoW's most iconic farming activities, replayed by the same players for months and occasionally years, doing the math on their drop rate after every failed attempt, returning the following evening without the mount and without hesitation. If you have done 400 Baron runs without seeing it, I don't know what to tell you. The dungeon is exceptional. The horse is not coming. In conclusion, classic WoW's dungeons are a complete and deliberate journey from a tutorial corridor under Orgrimmar to a plague-soaked city in the Eastern Plaguelands, and you should absolutely run all of them. If you enjoyed this PowerPoint presentation, I made others, and you should absolutely check them out. Peace on planet Earth.